So good evening and welcome to Coping with the Crisis. This is our third session. Tonight we are very privileged and blessed to have Donna Ledbetter, who is a member of our vestry and also a pastoral counselor. She went to one of the best schools here in this country, just a tremendous place. I can't say enough about it. Oh gosh, I happen to have gone there too. So, but I know they do a wonderful job in preparing people for pastoral ministry. And tonight, Donna is going to be talking with us about dealing with dark emotions. And then after she completes her presentation, we'll have an opportunity to ask questions. So if you have questions, it might be best to write them down so you don't forget them. We don't want to interrupt her during her presentation. So without further ado, Donna, thank you so much for being willing to talk to us this evening.
You're welcome, and thank you, Jeff. And thank you, friends, for joining us tonight, especially anybody that's new coming to join us. In the first two sessions, we've had Catherine and Tom helped us name many emotions and experiences we've been having since this pandemic has come upon us. Some are dark and some are not. Tonight, I'm speaking about dark ones. But we've had genuine feelings since this last 7-8 weeks, like love, kindness, compassion, and gratitude have all emerged during these dark times. In fact, I think many people have actually adapted quite well to the new normal of staying home, working from home, connecting virtually. And yet, the dark emotions are not absent. They're present as well. They are with us. Dark emotions naturally emerge during dark times. These are often the most difficult and painful to experience. Darkness often conjures up danger, so we naturally want to stay away from it. In this presentation, I hope to speak to you from my heart and share my understanding of the nature of dark emotions, what they are, what they mean, how they can be valuable as a source of learning, how to work with them so they don't overwhelm you, and how welcoming them, yes, welcoming, and indeed embracing them can be surprisingly helpful and can be a pathway to finding hope and healing during this rather strange and unprecedented time in our lives. Now that's a lot to cover in about 25 minutes, but I will do it, and my hope is that you will begin to see a new possibility, perhaps a new understanding and perception of yourself, of others, and of the life you're living. So sit back with me now. You can close your eyes if you want. This is not a meditation. I just want you to reflect back on the last 7-8 weeks as I ask you a few questions. Have you ever awakened in the middle of the night with a bit of a jolt, feeling tense and anxious, perhaps close to a panic, heart racing, restlessness, needing to get your breath? Have there been mornings when you don't seem to be greeting the day, but dreading it instead? A sense of foreboding hovers. Perhaps fear about the future surfaces in your mind. Are you noticing moments of sadness, melancholy, listlessness, lethargy, like a wandering kind of feeling where you seem to have no direction, no purpose, you can't get going, can't seem to do anything? Do you ever feel down, depressed, and rather hopeless? Sad, lonely, alone? Do you feel like crying? Are you grieving with all the losses? How about anger? Now there's a good one. Any desire to lash out at someone or something? Or maybe your anger shows up as irritability, snappiness, edginess, or controlling behaviors. How about a step further? Have you ever felt like you're going to erupt with absolute rage or hate? Had a desire to shout or scream? and fear, maybe even sheer terror. Fear about getting sick, or someone you love getting sick. Fear of death, fear of losing income, fear of job loss for yourself or family or friends, fear that this will never end, that this is just going to go on and on and on. Maybe you're even afraid of being afraid. And fear can lead to big feelings of hopelessness, uncertainty, not feeling safe, nothing to hold on to. And what about stress, distress, anxiety, an ever-pervasive experience, not being able to calm down, to feel peaceful, or settle into all of this? Maybe you can't turn your mind off, finding yourself obsessing and driving yourself crazy by engaging in compulsive behaviors that seem to be controlling you. You feel agitated all the time. Guilt? Do you feel bad that you're not suffering as much as others? That you're not suffering mentally, emotionally, physically, or financially as others are? Even a sort of survivor guilt. You're not sick, dying, or dead. Are you perhaps shaming yourself because you think you're not coping well and you're not handling this in healthy ways? And have you ever had moments of utter despair as time has gone on, as things have worsened and become chaotic? Maybe you feel especially vulnerable these days. Now, this is just a sampling, but if any of these experiences even remotely resemble yours, then I'd say you're human. I've probably experienced many of these at one moment or another in the last 8 weeks or so, and they're not easy to feel by any means. James Hollis, a noted Jungian psychoanalyst, calls the dark emotions swamplands. You get the imagery, not usually a place we want to head for. So now let's look at the nature and meaning of these dark emotions. But first, a little course in Feelings 101. You feel because you're human. You're human, so you feel. Feelings just are. They're neither right nor wrong, nor good or bad, nor positive or negative. As human beings, we tend to judge them, categorize them, and try to get rid of the ones that don't feel comfortable. We do that because we're human. In times of chaos and crisis like this pandemic, a myriad of difficult feelings emerge. Dark times beget dark emotions, and they can indeed overwhelm us, so we tend not to welcome them. We have a natural aversion to them. Now, think about any time in your life prior to this that has been particularly difficult, challenging, frightening, or heartbreaking. Those times are what I'd call the givens of life, the givens of existence. The givens of life include choices we make that are painful, experiences we can't control, situations that arise as part of the human condition that emerge throughout the cycle of life. We tend to resist the feelings that are generated. We fight the feelings. We don't like them. We try to avoid them. We deny them. We blame our feelings on someone else. We say things like, why is this happening? Our feelings, thoughts, perceptions, emotions, and behaviors are all connected. Our mental and physical well-being, or lack thereof, are intricately connected. If we can see these connections and accept all our feelings and emotions, we can find out what they mean, and we can have a good chance of getting to know ourselves and understanding ourselves better. Don't be surprised, though, if your reactions to our current pandemic situation might also be triggering memories and feelings from the past. You may need to revisit what has been triggered, realizing you may need to work through something again and accept that old memories and feelings are bubbling up as well. So accept it all. Accept them? Did I just say that? Yeah, I sure did. And not just accept them, but welcome and embrace them. I know it seems counterintuitive to welcome something that makes you suffer. It goes against our instincts as humans. We seek pleasure and avoid pain to satisfy our needs biologically, psychologically, and spiritually. It is also countercultural. Our culture tends to discourage feeling these feelings as if we will get sick feeling them or get stuck in them. And the message is more often than not, be positive, let it go, move on. And sometimes there's even a hidden critical meta message, a kind of reprimand. That message goes like this: get a hold of yourself, get a grip, as if you're not handling things well. However, welcoming and embracing are the keys to navigating dark emotions, and they serve as a gateway to learning so much about ourselves in the process, only if we choose and are open. This pandemic gives us just such an opportunity, whether we like it or not. Rumi, a 13th century Sufi mystic and poet, says this in his poem, The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So how can these emotions be a guide from beyond? How can these emotions be a healthy response to what is going on? I'd like to offer some suggestions on how to work with these in helpful ways. To recognize and validate your feelings is, first of all, honoring yourself. These feelings are your reality at any given moment. They're your authentic feelings. They're real. Validate them over and over and over again. Do not judge yourself and your feelings, and by all means, don't abandon yourself by neglecting these feelings. Tara Brach, renowned Buddhist meditation teacher and clinical psychologist, teaches a process called RAIN. The R is for recognizing our feelings. A is for allowing and giving space for our feelings. I is for investigating our feelings, like what triggered us? What are these feelings all about? And the N is for nurturing ourselves, offering self-compassion, as you'd offer compassion to a friend. But in this case, you'll be your own best friend. However, in order to do anything like this, I'm encouraging you to sit in the problem and not run away. The problem being whatever thoughts and perceptions have triggered difficult feelings in your mind and emotions in your body. To help with this, you may need to take some deep breaths, making your exhale longer than your inhale. Doing this will activate your parasympathetic nervous system, the part that helps you calm down, the part that helps you rest and restore. Then sit. Follow your breath. Use mindfulness practice to just notice what you're thinking and feeling, always without judgment. Stay in the here and now, the present, as much as possible. There are 3 skills or practices I'd like to share with you, adapted from the work of Miriam Greenspan, a respected psychotherapist and author. She suggests 3 skills, 3 powerful practices for embracing these dark emotions. I'm giving you the Cliff Notes version, though. These are attend, befriend, and surrender. Number 1, attend. Direct attention to your senses. Notice where the feelings show up in your body. Name the feelings and breathe through these feelings. Number 2, befriend. Just as that unexpected guest that is knocking at your door. Feel if you want to heal. Be curious instead of running from the feeling or experience. See what's going on within you, the stories you're telling yourself. You know, our narratives are very, very powerful. Our minds are powerful. All our thoughts are real, but they're not always the whole truth. And number 3, surrender. This is not giving up or giving in. It is just allowing yourself to go deeper, to stay fully present to your experience, moving straight into what hurts, and telling yourself the truth about your experience. Now, that was a quick version of Miriam's work, but it's a good at-home practice to do by yourself, or if you're uncomfortable, do that with someone else. Some other suggestions are obviously prayer, meditation, reading, journaling, conversations with thoughtful, wise people, therapy, spiritual direction, and other psycho-spiritual practices that can all help you face these feelings. Remember, this is not easy, but being vulnerable with yourself or another person, giving voice to your experience, strengthens you. Vulnerability is a true strength and requires courage. Now, a caveat though. If you are feeling so overwhelmed that you think you cannot handle your feelings, do call a wise friend or family member to talk to reach out to. You don't have to be alone in this. Or consider calling your priest, rabbi, minister, or spiritual director. Call a therapist, especially if someone who cares about you thinks professional help would be beneficial to you. It is not weakness to seek someone to help you through this. In fact, I think it takes a tremendous amount of courage to reach out. It's your way of honoring yourself and taking yourself seriously and taking care of yourself. It's a way to sort it all out, to heal, to come to know yourself with deeper awareness. A skilled therapist's expertise can help you navigate difficult feelings and experiences and be a very worthy companion with you as you struggle. And above all, if you feel so utterly overwhelmed by your emotions and/or they are triggering painful or unresolved issues from your past, and if you or others see that you are not functioning well, if you're trying to cope in unhealthy ways such as overuse of alcohol or drugs, and/or if you are in danger of harming yourself or another, please go to your nearest hospital emergency room or call 911. Your life and the life of another does matter. Do the most compassionate thing that you can do for yourself in that moment. Take yourself and or the advice of another seriously and get help. Now, many of you will be able to do this work, and it is work of sitting with your darker emotions and practicing loving kindness as you do so. And you really need to know when you're ready to do that. It's okay to just acknowledge them and put them aside for the time being. I've said to myself and my clients over the years, feel and function, knowing the feelings are there, but putting them on hold until you choose to work with them, till you're ready to work with them. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, why do all that? Why am I emphasizing feeling these feelings? Isn't it easier to try to forget about them, pretend they're not there, deny them, push them away, put on a happy face, rationalize them, or when they come up, feel victimized by them, or just blame something or someone else for your dark feelings? Well, the result may be that you end up holding on to grudges, refusing to forgive, staying angry at the world, being stuck in the past, living as a victim, and suffering with inner toxicity that can contribute to chronic mental and physical health problems, relationship problems, and a general problem living fully. So this is tricky. Let me be clear. There's a creative balance and difference between sitting in the dark emotions as a psycho-spiritual practice and living in dark, unexamined emotions as a way of life, which I emphasize could become toxic. One is a way of honoring yourself and all your feelings and examining them so you can learn from them as a way to live a full life filled with more vitality, gratitude, and loving kindness. The other, the unexamined dark feelings, leads to just the opposite, a life not fully lived, chronically enveloped by darkness, a deep abyss, our shadow self spilled on to everybody else. It is a paradox to be in the darkness, to connect with the darkness for a period of time will lead you out into the light. We cannot go around, we have to go through. If we refuse to sit with ourselves and bear our dark emotions, reflect and investigate them, we do risk getting stuck. I can't emphasize enough that the dark emotions are to be honored. We have always had them and always will, pandemic or not. Yet, we also want to experience the fullness of life. Our dark emotions, especially at times like this, can actually enliven us and transform our existence so that we can indeed live life fully in gratitude. We can begin to know ourselves at a more intimate level. We can enhance our relationships. We can experience our strength, our resilience, our courage. And we learn so much from the dark times in our lives if we can only befriend them and the feelings. You know, sometimes we can't see it at the time when we're right in the middle of it. But then we look back on dark times and dark feelings in our lives and we know we've grown and learned. We have changed. In a bit, when we have our discussion, I hope if you're willing to be vulnerable, perhaps you will share with us what you've learned from your own dark experiences and emotions in the past. Did they help you transform in any way? And how about the darkness of this pandemic? Has it changed you? Barbara Brown Taylor, a noted author and former Episcopal priest, says, I have learned things in the dark that I could never have learned in the light, things that have saved my life over and over again, so that there is really only one logical conclusion. I need darkness as much as I need light. Ironically, it is living through the dark night of the soul that the light of hope comes in the dawn. Ancient wisdom stories and traditions from all cultures and religions tell us so. They suggest that the power of living comes from living through dark times. The theme of moving through darkness to light, a powerful archetype, is also the theme of birth, death, rebirth, the life-death-life cycle. This wise and powerful theme has reverberated throughout history, in all times, with all peoples. It's exhibited in primitive tribal stories, oral traditions passed down through the generations, literature, art, fables, fairy tales, and films. It is the heroic journey, the great monomyth of all times, from the past into our present day. In the Christian tradition, we know it as moving through the darkness of Good Friday to the light of the resurrection. And Richard Rohr tells us the story of Jonah, and he says Jonah had to go into the belly of the whale in order to be spit out onto the shore of transformation. So he had to go into the darkness, not around it. We can grow through dark times, through examining those dark emotions, and live into wiser, more resilient, more compassionate people. In other words, people who are more fully alive. I can't emphasize this enough. That's the hope. There have been a few times in my life where hope has been absolutely invaluable to me. However, I did not get to the hope, to any sense of learning or transformation, without some initial resistance and fear. Sometimes I even felt despairing. During one particularly dark time, my husband Tom introduced me to a book written by one of his spiritual mentors during his seminary years, the Reverend Dr. John Claypool, who eventually became an Episcopal priest. John had written a memoir in response to some very dark times in his own life, significant and tragic losses. He repeatedly spoke about holding on to a hopeful heart. He said it was arrogant to despair because it presumes to know the outcome. That stuck with me. That brought tears to my eyes at the time, and it changed everything for me. It helped me begin to sit with the darkest of feelings that I have ever had in my whole entire life. When I finally let myself feel those dark feelings, talk about them, cry about them, rage about them, honor them, learn from them, and sometimes I didn't like what I was learning, I began to breathe again, to hope again, and to love anew. Those memories, those experiences that strengthened me, my faith, my hope, have helped sustain me during this pandemic. The promise of hope is always within our reach, I believe. Hope just takes different forms at different times in our life. I will conclude with an excerpt from T.S. Eliot's poem, East Coker, from Four Quartets. I said to my soul, be still and wait without hope, for hope would be hope for the wrong thing. Wait without love, for love would be love of the wrong thing. There is yet faith, but the faith and the love and the hope are all in the waiting. Wait without thought, for you are not ready for thought. So the darkness shall be the light, in the stillness, the dancing. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. Now, Donna's agreed to take some questions if anyone would like to raise a question based upon what she shared with us this evening.
I'll take questions, and I have questions if you don't have any. Thank you for listening so attentively. I felt your care and presence, and it made an enormous difference to me. It really touched me.
I don't see any hand waving.
Well,
so Donna, you're going to get to put the questions to them then.
okay. One of the questions was the one I asked in the middle of the presentation. Do you remember any dark times or dark experiences in your life that shaped you, changed you in any way, helped perhaps to transform your entire life? And, or just in this pandemic, you know, have you felt deep change happen as a result of some of the dark emotions and dark experiences you may have had? It's a hard topic to talk about.
Joe DeSalvo was going to say something.
Yes, and I'm not sure whether or not this is responding to your question, but one of the things that I noted that you talked about is validating feelings.
Right.
And I think that that's very important. It's very important to me. And I know that a lot of times when there is conflict, very often one person will express how he or she feels, and the other person will be defensive about it.
Right.
And I always feel that that the first thing you need to do is validate those feelings. You know, I understand how you're feeling, but perhaps, and that's very important to me. When I'm having feelings about something, I need to know that my feelings are valid. But I guess somewhat associated with this, I made note of some of the examples of dark emotions, and like probably many of you, I experienced some or many of them to varying degrees. But probably one that I really grabbed a hold of doesn't seem like it's dark, but you brought it up and I felt it, and so I'll talk about it. And that is guilt. And I have felt guilt in a number of ways. I felt some guilt that I am relatively healthy. Of course, I've been in exile for a number of days, over 40, but I feel good, and when I hear reports of people, some people that I know who are having a rough time, it kind of makes me feel a little bit guilty. But probably one of the feelings of guilt that I experienced most of all was, I guess, validated and perhaps changed by a very close friend of mine who happens to be a member of the choir, and who knows that I was in the process of having a home built, and which is near settlement. And I told her one day that, you know, I was so excited about it, and then this happened, and it's like, and I just wish that I could get excited again. And and if you will, shortly, a few hours later, she said, Joe, I've given a lot of thought of your feelings right now about the house and how the virus has put a damper on your excitement. Here's what my rambling mind came up with. Yes, the virus has put a damper on many things. People buying new homes, people expecting a baby, people who will be graduating from high school or college, people who are ready to begin a new job, people who are planning weddings. I think for some, they feel almost guilty at looking forward to something when there's such trouble swirling around us. But to my way of thinking, looking forward to all of those things serves as a way of hope that things will be better, that happier days are ahead. So please try not to be too down about your house and don't let your excitement be spoiled. That beautiful house is a sign that there will be a new day and there will be happiness ahead. And that made such an impact on me. And it allowed me to be happy and excited about a new home for me. And so,
Thank you, Joe. It seems like your friend validated all of the various feelings you were having, and that was important. You were juggling almost oppositional feelings.
right.
Does anyone want to comment on anything Joe said, or did it stir up some guilt in you? Have you had those kinds of feelings too?
I think Natalie has her hand up.
Okay.
I can take it down now. There's not a dark feeling in Christendom I haven't felt at some point. And I guess one of the joys of being a little bit older is I've had so many years to work on them. And I found out, I don't know when, but being fairly content is an intrinsic value, not an extrinsic value.
Mm-hmm.
And if you allow everything on the outside to penetrate you and expect to be content, it's not going to happen. But I also wanted to make a comment on your one of the first things you said about the swamp, your Jungian writer.
Swamplands.
Your swampland. You know, the swampland is nature's nursery. And a great deal comes out of it that's terribly important to us.
Right.
And I think we have to remember that there's no storm, and I don't mean it as a cliche, but there's no storm that can last forever. It just can't. It's not the nature of the world. And sometimes you just have to ride things through. So I think that's it.
Thank you. I think Eleanor and Ted both. I don't know who was first, but Eleanor?
Go ahead, Eleanor.
I appreciated your presentation. It was
Thanks.
so thoughtful and well put together. I grew up in a family that didn't have feelings.
Oh,
Didn't admit feelings, never acknowledged them. It's taken me years to live through that, to understand that, to grow from it. I can't remember any particular dark times, but when Joe started talking about guilt, I did remember guilt with a very bad relationship I had with a family member. And that was very painful to get beyond. And I think, you know, I've learned to get through those dark feelings. Right now, though, I don't think we can help. As positive and as hopeful and as faithful as we can be, those feelings bubble up.
that's right.
So I appreciate you telling us. I've learned to sit with them, but I haven't learned to really go into them.
Mm-hmm.
So you've given me some food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor.
Which Ted was the one you were talking
Ted Olson. Yeah.
And
Ted Olson.
There I am. Okay. Thank you, Donna. That was wonderful. Truly wonderful.
Thank you, Ted.
You're welcome. I did want to add just to your question about experiencing dark times. And again, I think I'll echo what Natalie said, is that if you live long enough, you've kind of gone through the gamut. And the other part of it is you also realize, we've gone through the gamut and come out the other end. And one of the things that I have found to be most helpful is what we're doing here tonight. And that is that even though we're each in our own little individual boxes, so to speak, we are all in communion with
Right.
each other. And it is the communion, it is the interaction, it is the relationships that help to heal, that help to bring us along. That when we feel we're sinking, somebody grabs a hold of us and pulls us along as they're swimming, I think that's perhaps for me one of the greatest lessons that I've learned along the way.
Thank you. They're precious little boxes we have right now, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom? My husband, Tom?
Oh, where is Tom? There he is. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, back to the theme of recovering from hard things that happen. I would say that when I was 11, my mother died. And I used to flippantly say it was the best thing that happened to me. That's not true. It was a profoundly important event in my life. Had it not happened, in seminary, I got into therapy as a result of my wife being in the hospital there in Louisville for 21 days. And all of that stuff started coming up. Had no idea what it was, but it was grief for my mother. Had she not died, as a result of her death, I became a minister and a psychotherapist and specializing in grief along the way. And so the recovery from that darkness was really, really important in terms of giving me new life and a new career, a new ministry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Mhm.
I think Natalie had her hand up again.
Well, first of all, Donna, I want to thank you. This was yet another fabulous presentation. And I think that's all I really wanted to say was thank you.
Well, you're quite welcome.
Anyone else? Donna, do you have another question you wanted to ask us?
Well, I think a sort of sideways question is, have you noticed any family or friends, neighbors, anybody going through a particularly dark time, maybe different from your experience? And what's that been like for you when you've heard them talk about it, or you can see and observe that they're in a really, really tough place? And how have you been helpful perhaps to them?
Well, I know people who are having trouble. I think I often doubt my ability to help, and I'm struggling with that to try to understand how I can help a particular person and whatever it is that they're going through.
Well, I think it's great that you even are aware that that person's struggling, and your care for them will mean a lot. Just sitting with them and being present to them, that's enough even right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's a difficulty. You don't want to invade other people's sense of privacy by saying too much. I think my problem is that I've never felt that I had a lot of help myself, so I maybe lack skills.
Okay. Does anyone have a comment or response to what she's sharing?
Muddle through.
Well, I don't think it always requires skill, perhaps just presence, but Catherine has a thought.
Where is Catherine?
Catherine's not unmuted
She has
yet.
to unmute herself.
There you go.
She won't let me
Okay.
do it.
You have a thought, Catherine?
Oh, yeah, because I also have had big issues about not wanting to be intrusive for people. And what I've found is that my doubting myself gets in the way of my just being present.
Mhm.
And the real gift that we can offer anyone who is having a hard time is just being with them and opening our heart. And that doesn't require doing anything but presence.
Right. Thank you.
I would say also, I have to pay attention to the unusual phone calls because I have a person that calls that I don't really have a relationship with other than a working relationship. But she calls now at least once a week, and I realize she just needs to talk.
Mhm.
And I don't know why I'm the person she's chosen. And I have to try to be really quiet when she talks because I don't want to interject. But I try to be present for her, even though I don't know what she's really looking for.
I think
Maybe your
Tom,
presence draws her back and back to you.
I think Tom Carlson had his hand up for a second. Tom?
Yeah, I was just going to make a quick response to Catherine there. It reminded me of going back to the Doobie days, when just to be was okay. And I think that for Carol as well, is just to be present with someone is such a remarkable gift. It doesn't take words. It certainly doesn't take answers, but just to be there and allow them to feel your presence, to feel your concern, and let them in their own time, if they choose to begin to speak up about what their deep feeling is. But thanks for your presentation. It's remarkable.
And I think Ted had his hand up next.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, now follow my train of thought here. Your comment about swamplands made me think of something when Jack and I had a place down earlier, several years ago in Rehoboth. We backed up to wetlands, but I was a little confused about my terminology, and I was telling people that we backed up into a landfill. But once I got the terminology cleared up, I knew that it was wetlands. But the thing about the swamplands is there are the naturally evoked feelings that come up, the dark feelings that do come up. And then there are those that are actually because of the landfills that we back into. And I'm thinking particularly of like news and all of that kind of stuff that we pay attention to that can really kind of unnecessarily add to the grief and the feelings, the dark feelings that we already experience without having to aggravate or exacerbate them.
That's right.
And I think Joe DeSalvo had his hand up too.
Yes, to comment to Eleanor, you made mention that you were not sure why she picked you, or what she was looking for. And when you said that, my response was, she probably found it in calling you. It's sometimes we have gifts that we don't realize that we have, and sometimes our gift doesn't involve saying anything to anybody or giving them advice, but just to listen.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Judy Eager and Marianne Babness. Oops.
Jump onto what Joe said. For me, it's listening to people And many times people come up and thank me for just being there. And I think that's a big part of it. If you just turn to them and know that what they're seeking is just to be heard, that helps me through some situations. And I guess I'm thinking now of the first responders or people in the ERs and what they're going through and what they're going to continue to go through in the months and years ahead, and how we're going to have to listen to people like that. So thank you very much for what you do, Carol.
Thanks, Marianne. We just have a few minutes left. Is there anything anybody else wanted to share or say? Ray, I don't know if you're playing with your camera or if you wanted to share. Donna, any closing comments or thoughts you want to share?
I just
Oh, wait, there was one more from Bonnie.
There you go. Bonnie? She's not unmuted.
Go ahead, Bonnie.
I just wanted to thank Donna. It was a marvelous presentation. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate all of your attention and participation and thoughtfulness, and we will all get through this. And I'm very, very grateful to St. Peter's, to Jeff, to TJ, to Chris, to Kelly, I mean, for doing all this and putting it together. I mean, it really keeps our community alive and keeps us loving one another and being there for one another. I know that any of us could call one another, and I hope that any people that are listening that are not part of the parish know we welcome you, and I hope you also have communities out there that you can turn to, especially when feelings get very dark. So thank you.
And Donna, I just want to say again from everybody, thank you for helping us to think about this time and to reflect on the experiences we've had during this period of quarantine, and to really raise up, I think, the idea that even as difficult as all of these things are that we're struggling with and living into, that in the midst of that, there's also a great gift that comes to us from this experience, things that we can learn, things that we can embody, things that I hope we'll hold on to about the importance of our connections and our relationships when this period of isolation comes to an end. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Next week,
my pleasure.
Oh, sure. Next week, our presentation is from Father Ted Olson, and he'll be talking about how do we accept the unacceptable. Ted, do you have anything you want to say to that before we conclude for this evening?
Yes, I would say, first of all, that with Catherine, then Tom, and then Donna, this bar is getting higher and higher. So, I will do my best in my old body to jump the bar anyway. But yeah, I just want to say a few words. Accepting the unacceptable. I'm going to use as a jumping off point that first line in that Serenity Prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. And I want to focus on serenity and what kind of gets in the way of our, if you will, achieving or living in that kind of serenity. What gets in the way of accepting what we perceive, important word, perceive to be unacceptable, and then what might be some helps or virtues toward living in that kind of serene way of living.
Sounds marvelous.
Yeah, yeah, I hope it does turn out. You know.
It will.
Well, friends, I just want to underscore again what Donna said, that none of us are truly alone, that we have many resources here in the congregation to share with each other. We are all a gift to each other. All of the clergy and I are available to you if you need to talk or reach out to someone. And I'm sure the counselors and therapists that we have in the congregation would be willing to help you too. So please don't hesitate to call if we can help. And go in peace to love and serve the Lord.
Thanks be to
Thanks
God.
be to God.
Hallelujah, hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Good night, friends. Thank you again, Donna.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you. You're all wonderful.
Yeah, great job, Donna. Thank you again.
Thank you, Jeff.
Any questions or anything? Or we're chatting tomorrow at 1, right?
Oh, is it tomorrow? Oh, that's right.
Yeah. We'll see you
Okay.
then.
All right.
God bless.
I
Bye.
forget how to leave.